there, this is about idea development and guiding students to deeper ideas. I'm Sarah Harlow. I've got 17 years of experience teaching in North Carolina and Georgia, kindergarten through 12th grade, public and private school. And this actually came from my master's degree that I got at Eastern Illinois University. AP had a change in focus last year, and this was a little bit of a struggle for a lot of teachers and students because we went from a concentration around one topic to a sustained investigation which could branch off in different directions and students could really figure out where they were going themselves. They need a good question, which is a struggle. It has to be personal, engaging, open-ended, not media-driven. And this is a little bit hard to find, especially for students themselves. They don't have that much experience understanding how to do that. So how do we help them develop their own good questions? Research shows that it helps if you reinforce positive values, look at how artists work, find the story, and play a little bit. When you begin thinking, you have to think happy thoughts. We really tend to stick with what's safe and ideas that have succeeded before or something that's really close to it. That's why you see that they fall back on what they're comfortable with. And so it really helps to really reiterate positive values. So they think about what a good friend is, what a brave person does, what kindness means. And this really helps them to kind of get in a positive mindset, and that helps them come up with bolder and braver ideas. If we want students to analyze text, to generate new ideas, to think for themselves, they need to know how to do divergent thinking, convergent thinking, and metacognition. They need to be able to think really broadly. That's what we think of as creativity, where they come with a wide range of ideas. We need them to be able to converge on something and really focus in on it, and then they need to really know how to think for themselves and think about their own thinking. How do they make art well? So this book, Make Just One Change, was a huge thing when I found this. It really talks about teaching students how to ask questions and not just brainstorm answers. It starts with a question-focused technique, which is where you give students a word, an image, a phrase, something really provocative. They can look at an artwork, and then you have the students ask as many questions as they can in small groups, kind of 3 or 4 people. 2 is kind of too few because they have a hard time coming up with very many. Don't stop to discuss, judge, answer the questions, kind of keep them focused. And they write down the questions exactly as they get asked. They have to change their statements into questions. It's kind of like Jeopardy. And then the main thing is, after you get all done, don't compare who's got more questions. It's really about who has similar ones and who has different ones. And then analyzing those questions to see whether or not they're open or closed-ended. So now you're ready. They think about questions about a topic, because usually we ask them to think about answers of a topic. They brainstorm just answers. So now they're thinking about questions. They have to think hard. They compare and they mark what's similar and what's different. And then they can add their questions to another group and see how many they can come up with and whether or not they're all the same or different. Then a little bit tricky part is that they have to transform them into open-ended questions. That means a closed-ended question is something that's like, how many planets are in the solar system? Because that's easy to Google. It's a yes or no question, that sort of thing. And we really want them to think a little bit deeper than that. So how do you explore the solar system is a much broader, more open-ended question. And then, of course, being art class, I have them sketch any images that came to mind as they were coming up with these, and they've come up with a lot of different paths that they can go down as they start to investigate this topic, and they can help each other come up with more questions. Then we really dig into what other artists do. So we look at the story that we would see in another artist's work. What media did they use? What makes the work interesting? And a really cool question is, what is the hero in this work? What is this artist really trying to get across? What's the most important thing? And I always have them look at these 3. Annette Lawrence actually presented at the National Convention back in, honestly, like 8 years ago in Fort Worth. Natalie presented at the Georgia Conference, and Edward Bertinsky I love because he works with industrial waste and like photographs of it, and the kids really seem to latch onto that. And a lot of these, actually both of those, have kind of a science background, and it's all figurative, sorry, and that really makes them think a little bit more. Okay, so now we're talking about their story. What is really going on in this work? So we're converging on a topic. What's really kind of engaging about this? So we look at their feelings. What is important? What grabs us emotionally? Is there a hero or an antagonist? And if you think about the environment one, it's really like the people are the antagonists, the environment is the hero, and that carries through all of his work. And Natalie's, it's more about data is the hero, and she turns that into these amazing sculptural pieces. There's drama in that. And then emotional images and colors and objects. What could you kind of relate to your work, and what sort of color schemes are we going to see? And then a big idea. Are they solving something? Are they challenging something? Are we trying to understand something? A lot of students love the topic of change, but they don't think very deeply about it. So to personalize that, well, how have you changed? Is change a good thing? Is it a hero, or is it a negative thing? And we've all gone through changes, and so it gives them a really good way to dig it more deeply into that. And then they look up different artists that have either worked with a topic or a media that they really like, to really see how other artists have dealt with this. These are a couple of AP examples from last year. I had one student that worked with how do we alter our food systems, and you can see that she worked with like genetic engineering. She talked about how all of the fresh water that we want to drink is in plastic, and we take our fresh food off the tree and put it in plastic. So her work was really engaging, and it had a lot of different directions it could go. And then the other student that you see here is how do you deal with trauma? And instead of it being an image of trauma like bad things happening, it was much more how do we deal with that? How do we process it? How do we get growth out of it? And she has lots of layers in her work. You can see the faces and all the voices in her head, which I thought was a really great way to approach going in lots of different directions. So that worked really well over the course of the year. The last bit is time to play. And a lot of times we forget with our advanced students to give them time to play. They're really good at media, and kind of pretending to be a kindergartner again and just having a good time with art kind of slips their mind. So this gives them several different ways that they can do that. And I tend to take one of those weeks that's really short, you're missing like because you got to teach a work day or something. And so we do water soluble media is one day. We do black and white, surface manipulation where we collage a lot of different things onto this like paper. We use newspaper and tissue paper, that sort of thing. And then they can use that again later in their work to work on top of that. And then focusing on textures is a really fun one. I've done this with kindergarten through 12th grade, and they make a huge mess, and it's a lot of fun. But I go to the Dollar Tree and I get things that have textures, like those little dryer balls, cat toys, the bath sponges, and then we get out watercolor, we get paint, water it down, we use ink. They just make a huge mess, but they have such a good time with it because they're not having to make a thing that looks like a thing, and they really enjoy that. The real goal is to make the students think. So when we start with an answer and make the students come up with the questions themselves, their learning is much more personalized. They're asking, what do I wonder about this? They engage much more deeply, and they become a lot more independent. Now they're the ones asking the question, which gives them a lot of freedom. They really haven't gotten to do that. They spent so much time just giving answers. And when the student explores a question of their own through making art, they discover how to think like an artist. They're really finding their own direction. These are my references that I used, and I've got the three artists are on there, a couple of the books that I used that I really enjoyed, and then here is like my email address, this slideshow. There's actually the link to my AP portfolios that I've got that are graded, so you can kind of see those. It helps to have a few more examples, so that is there for you as well. And I really hope you enjoy, and just let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.